I guess the whole world is different than it was this time last year, and even a few months ago. Things have changed a lot, and I'm just trying to roll with it and keep business running best as possible during this time.
So are you coming to me from your home office?
Yeah. This is the home office. It usually doesn't get much time, but lately it's been the center of operations.
So what's kind of been the situation like for you guys for the last couple of months?
I suppose Australia is quite lucky. We're remote, we're isolated, and we had a delayed experience compared to most of the rest of the world. Our Prime Minister closed the borders very early, and most of the cases in the country came from cruise ships and returning travellers. So to date, touch wood, we've had 90. That's 90 deaths in Australia from COVID. And that's a credit to all of the health service that quickly responded to providing advice and locking down the borders and getting as much PPE as possible and all of those things. So the actual personal pain that people are feeling is more around isolation and businesses shut down and economic stresses, which is it's good that we're not seeing people as sick or dying or the experiences many countries feel. And I really feel for the guys, people you may know in New York and that area where it can be quite a stressful time and lots of people dying. We're not seeing that and very thankful for that experience. Economically, our borders are shut. We can't get all the parts we want. And in fact, other countries are trying to purchase our parts from Australia because it's semi-isolated and we can get it out fairly well from here. So yeah, it's different. And I guess we're talking about COVID now, but our farmers and businesses here have had 2 years of drought, followed very shortly after by some of the worst bushfires we've ever seen. And the bushfires weren't even out before the COVID, was being reported, and very shortly after, our borders were shut. So there's lots of people hurting out there from the drought still and bushfires still, and our focus has shifted to this. So while it doesn't feel like we're running a counselling service anymore, it's still necessary to remember that a lot of our customers are still experiencing stress from that.
So you mentioned the fact that the parts supply and distribution has certainly changed. Can you talk a little bit more? I mean, even if maybe the quality of life and just what you guys are seeing from a pure number of cases standpoint, certainly sounds like from a business impact, you guys are seeing some disruptions there. Yeah.
So personal standpoint, we're working from home where we can. We're going out. We're implementing remote service far more than what we had previously, and that's a request sometimes from the customers. We've got people with so in Australia, the average age of farmers is over 55, and the risk factor increases at 60 for COVID. So we want to keep them safe, and they want to be safe themselves. Dad might be still on the farm, and jumping in a tractor without cleaning it first and cleaning it after is something that is new to us. And we've got procedures through each service vehicle that goes out, but the request for remote service is far increasing what it had before. We actually service customers across 2 states, and the border's been shut on that line. And while you can get approval to cross into that state, it's not recommended, and only if necessary. So, we've been relying highly on services like AgriSync and phone and TeamViewer and all those things to help out our guys across the border. But back to personally, we're working from home. The schools are shut. We're homeschooling. People who hadn't ever thought they might homeschool their kids before are forced into it now, and it's really interesting. The dynamic of women in the industry expected to look after the kids is changing, because many of them work in health service and many of them work in essential services, and the consultants are at home, looking after the kids, and I think that is one positive outcome, is that equality may change going forward.
That's interesting. You mentioned the remote service aspect, and I mean, certainly here in the States too, that's something I'm hearing more of, and that dealerships are, taking more advantage of that opportunity, maybe where in, seasons past, it was available, but it wasn't always a priority because it was very comfortable just to go out to the farm, make that service call to a customer and solve the problem. This year, it sounds like certainly the dealerships that have those tools are deploying them far more. One of the questions I've asked is then looking at, those services that you can utilize remotely. Are dealerships able to bill for those in a lot of cases? And are you able to recoup some of that time that you're still spending, diagnosing a problem? What's your take? What do you approach to that?
The challenge we've always seen with remote service is still there. It's still, I talked to him for 5 minutes and I got a bill for $25. That sort of conversation still happens. I have seen this as an opportunity to make remote service more mainstream and a service that customers are requesting from us. And I think that, this is the perfect time to make that change. So we've tried to communicate with our customers about the fact that we won't be coming out, but this is still a valuable service that we'll be providing at a cost. And sometimes we've been successful in communicating that well, and other times not so well. But we're working on it and seeing this as the change over time.
Mm. I've heard some other dealerships talk about what may be the kind of the new normal out of this, as far as kind of the working atmosphere and the climate that, particularly on the precision side. And I know you're accustomed to not necessarily being in the office all that much anyway, being out, on the road visiting customers. But when you're talking about that remote element, do you see more of that being kind of a standard operating procedure for the dealership, even as we kind of start to emerge from all this?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a new normal that will come out of this. Yeah, I think the willingness of dealerships to promote or at least see working remotely as a valuable thing is what will come out of this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And many may not go back to normal. This might be the new normal.
Sure. Well, and you mentioned, kind of some of the customer interaction, the communication you're having with them. What's the communication been like with your team, your coworkers, your employees, on how you're able to communicate, day to day, kind of setting schedules, getting agendas straight, making sure that between departments, anything that needs to get accomplished is still getting done?
even more than the remote service, that is the challenge that we're facing within our own business, and other people looking externally may not see that, but tools such as CRMs are becoming more and more useful. And we're working separate to each other. We're working, we're not in the same room at the same time. We're not really having the toolbox meetings or the huddle rooms that we used to. It's out in the car park, and it's across the back of the ute type separation, or I should say pickup. It's very different, and my guys that are still doing field work, they're out the whole time, and we just have to use tools to communicate, like notes, emails, all of that stuff, and keeping track. And that's why I mentioned CRMs, keeping track of where each issue and where each sales inquiry or customer touch point is up to, and seeing that, okay, this guy's been to customer A's place and had this issue. Is it resolved or is it not? No news isn't always good news, especially at the moment.
Right. You mentioned the fact about getting components, getting hardware supplies on the equipment side. You talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've seen. I've had a chance to talk to one of your other colleagues in Australia, and he mentioned that there's been challenges with getting things in a timely manner, and I know particularly if you're talking about how things are available in Australia versus say the States, with large equipment. What are you seeing on the precision side as far as being able to source things, get things when you need them?
If it's in the country, we're pretty right. We're basically seeing about a month lead time if it's got to be brought in from overseas, and that might be just a small delay on the packing and shipping because they're working reduced hours or reduced staff times. A lot of our antenna cables or non-genuine parts were sourced through China, and basically that's completely stopped. And a lot of businesses here, including ours, are going back to, well, let's make the antenna cables and let's make the wiring harnesses up on a case-by-case basis, because we can't be sure that it's going to be available. And so that, coupled with some of the stock here in Australia being shipped out to other countries because it's seen as a easy place to get to and from, as far as there's very few cases, and we're still operating quite well. Say South Africa and Russia and the EU are grabbing parts from here, and we're seeing the stock levels come down a lot.
Has that posed any problems for you, particularly on those smaller, parts that you probably, were able to obtain pretty easily, especially what might be coming in, from China or farther east, and trying to get some of that? Is that posing any delays? Are you guys working around that?
Yeah, it's probably delaying the new installs by another extra week, and that might be because we're making up harnesses, or we're sourcing kits and robbing from one kit to make a full kit on another, which many people will be familiar with, and then tracking that so that we get the PO coming in to make that kit operational again. We're scrambling to make sure that we can ensure our customers don't feel that pain. And coupled with that, I mentioned the drought and the bushfires. So we're going into winter, so our winter crop, wheat, barley, broadacre stuff, it's been 2 years for many of our customers since they've planted these crops. And so being able to get it in the ground in a timely manner and have all their equipment working, which may not have turned a wheel for 12 months, is causing a spike in service calls, both service department and precision farming department, and both of us together at many times. which is a challenge. We can't calibrate it if the hydraulics are pulled off, and communicating between the departments are critical at this time, because the customer is going to be in the paddock, in the field, the moment that we both finish.
Absolutely. So from a kind of an overall business standpoint, you mentioned maybe service calls are up. What are you guys seeing, in terms of just sales, revenue, operational structure, and kind of the business as a whole? Are you guys up, down, about the same, kind of weathering the storm and everything you guys have encountered the last, 12 to 18 months over there?
Staff retention over the 2 years of drought has been a major issue, and it always has been for Australian rural businesses. And making sure we still have the knowledge in the dealership over that time is something that weighs heavily on the dealer principals. And now that we're into a high tempo period to get the crops in, we've got junior technicians stepping up. And, it falls a lot of times to precision farming department to assist those guys when they may not be familiar with, say, the steering circuits or the wiring problems, or, and where we're actually stepping outside of what we would normally cover, hydraulic schematics, electrical schematics, and trying to help them with that. So, it's a challenge. But they're stepping up, and most of our customers understand that, if they don't buy tractors over the drought period, which is fine, there's less likelihood that all the staff will be there. Mm-hmm. And so from that side of it, on the sales side, there's more inquiry this year than we've ever seen for the last couple of years. And so that's great. It's pushing out our forecasting quite well, and we're finding customers are just sitting on waiting for a bit of rain. So we need about another 20 to 50 mil, so about an inch more over the whole area to get a decent plant this season.
Gotcha. So on the precision side, specifically, have you guys seen anything that's been, of higher interest among your customers, kind of a focal point as far as a particular technology, or maybe it's something that you're, looking forward to, that your customers are anticipating and asking about?
I've got to say, rate control and isobus implement retrofits are the flavour of the day at the moment. We're getting numerous calls a day for quotes on that, and I guess that's a factor of 2 years of seed load in the soil now is emerging, and they need to get across more country. So there's that, and also when a new implement or a new tractor is not on the cards, we need to make the old one work more efficiently. So that's the drivers of that one. Certainly, far and away, it's the implement.
Gotcha. So remind me again, Jason, how big of a precision staff do you guys have currently?
We've fluctuated quite a lot with our dedicated precision staff, and we're moving into a phase particularly driven by the way that the new Case IH and New Holland tractors are designed and supported through that product channel. Our precision guys are more the advisors to the service department in that respect, and so we've released some of our staff back to the service department. Being your best mechanic had been previously working in technology department, and now his skills are needed in the service department. So we're back to 3 guys. Yeah. And so that's a core staff, and we support the service department to go out and do most of the work, and we try and take the tricky ones.
Yeah, I mean seems to be a trend. Certainly in North America as well, where you're seeing a lot more dealerships that are trying to, well, one, cross train, within the service department, even the parts department, where you're getting them a little bit more integrated into some of the precision problem solving on maybe a lower level, and then you're having the higher level stuff still go up to the precision specialists. But I mean, the retention and the hiring, I mean, that's I think a universal challenge for dealerships, and certainly, here our fair share of turnover, here, particularly coming out of spring planting, which is, where we are at today, sitting in that, and a lot of the areas are just getting into that type of year, and, trying to navigate everything else. But yeah, it's interesting that, what comes with that as well. One of the interesting things that's been noted here is that, a lot of the dealerships will work with universities or college and bring in interns, short-term employees, for spring and summer. And with universities closed here, it's been interesting to hear dealers say they've been able to get some of the interns to come earlier because they can split their time a little easier with schooling from home and then coming and pitching in at the dealership. So in some cases, they're actually getting a little bit more benefit from the interns early on this year.
Yeah, wow, that's an unexpected benefit. And the intern situation is something that we've been quite keen to utilise here in Australia. It's a little different with our Fair Work policies or regulations, but tying in with the universities is something that we're really keen to do. And currently, that's sort of mainly been done with the agronomic services businesses, and not so much with businesses like ours. And I think moving forward, it's a good opportunity.
Excellent. Well, Jason, I mean, anything else you wanted to mention in terms of out of the ordinary? I'm not sure how much you're hearing from other countries or North America on the network of dealers, or even from Case as far as communication with them, or what you're hearing on any delays or things that others are experiencing. Be curious to get your take on how the communication is from this side, because I know talking with other dealers about their discussions maybe overseas or internationally with some peers or friends, that they get their take and try to communicate what's going on here and find some common ground or what's going to work, whether it's sharing information, sharing parts, sharing equipment. That seems to be a lot of that going on as well.
Yeah, if I had to count the number of emails I have on COVID-19 preparedness and what we're doing to keep you safe, I would be a rich man if I had $1 for each one of them. But I think the communication's fairly regular and fairly open, and I think that's credit to the awareness that's being created everywhere about this issue. So apart from that, I think we're saturated on that side, but also everyone understands that there are delays, and we're just working with it.
So is there a timetable in your area on when you guys are planning to loosen things up and potentially be back in the office? Do you guys have things within the dealership that you guys are going to incrementally kind of loosen up? We're
looking out for the updates each day on new cases. We've had a number of days or even a number of weeks where it's been close to 0 new cases in the area, and some restrictions have been relaxed. People are now allowed out of their homes and to go driving for 50 kilometres, without prior reason. And so that's helping with the mental health of some people who have been shut up for some time, potentially with a number of small kids. And, so that's great. We're looking at probably another week or two before the schools are open, and another short time after that before some services are back to normal. But there's no guarantees. You know, it only takes a few people to be out and about while they're sick before we get another spike in cases. So it's a daily basis, and I guess our Prime Minister's sort of up in front of the media every day or every few days, giving us an update, and that's an interesting situation too, where we wouldn't normally hear from those guys so often, and it's certainly a different world.